Big 12 play is officially here, and the Red Raiders will head out to Morgantown to kick off their Big 12 slate. But the real question is, what can you expect from Texas Tech in the Big 12? We'll discuss that, plus some QB1 talk in today's video. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I am RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. If you haven't already, and I know 73.1% of y'all haven't that watch the videos, hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long, and simply like the video if you like getting daily updates about Texas Tech, whether that's, game previews, film breakdowns, whatever it may be. We've got you covered all year long right here on your one-stop shop for everything Texas Tech football. Of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, we're going to jump right into this and see where Texas Tech stands as of right now. And what I mean by that is simply, hey, where does the offense rank nationally in terms of points per game? Where do they land in total offense? Where do they land in total defense, scoring defense, right? We'll talk about that. So let's jump right into it as of right now. And again, these are through 3 weeks of the year. You're 25% through your season if you're Texas Tech, right? See it at the bottom of your screen right there. The scoring offense ranked for Texas Tech is 45th nationally. They're averaging just under 35 points per game. On the defensive side of things, 25 points per game. And I know that that's not great. It's 80th nationally, but years past, it's pretty damn good for Texas Tech. And considering some of the situations that the offense has put them in early, not too bad for Tim DeRuyter's crew. Now, total offense-wise, you're sitting 46 nationally if you're the Red Raiders a quarter of the way through the season. And total defense, you're averaging, giving up 378 yards per game. Not ideal. It comes in 86 nationally. Now, there is one thing to think about on the defensive side of the football. They are allowing 4.87 yards per play. For reference, that is on par with Texas, Kansas State, and Utah. Some pretty damn good teams. You look at the top 25, those teams are up there, and they're doing a pretty damn good job. So you look at what the defense is doing for Texas Tech, they've been pretty solid. Now, have they committed some penalties that they shouldn't have against Wyoming? Sure. But they've also been put in some tough situations due to the offense, whether that was poor coaching decisions in terms of going for it on fourth down, some bad play calls, and just simply offensive turnovers, right? So you think about it, the defense has been pretty solid this year. When I look at the offensive numbers, that just ain't going to cut it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But I want to hear from you guys. You tell me, what is the most concerning aspect for the Red Raiders going into Big 12 play? Like, what are you most concerned about? Let me know down in the comments below. All right, let's take a look at the first 3 games of the Big 12 slate for the Red Raiders, an early look at it, and where I think Texas Tech can really benefit from this, right? The first 3 games they have, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, are at West Virginia this coming up week. They then come back and face the Fighting Donovan Smiths in the Houston Cougars. He makes his return to the 806. And then they go to Waco to play Baylor, right? If you ask me, right, I don't think you could have had a beginning part of the schedule that you like more if you're Texas Tech. And the reason being is this. I'm not here to crap on West Virginia. I'm not here to crap on Houston either. But I do think that they're closer to the bottom tier of the Big 12. I think that they are in that, 14 to 10 range of the Big 12. I don't think that's shade. I just don't know what they are. And congrats to West Virginia for beating Pitt. Pitt is just an absolute dumpster fire. And then Houston, they've struggled in the non-con, right? Texas Tech has too, but I do think Texas Tech is a better team, right? And then Baylor. I have no idea what the hell Baylor is, let alone right now, let alone in 3 weeks, okay? I have no idea. And I think that Texas Tech couldn't have gotten a better draw when it comes to, okay, we have to play 2 road games right now, and then we get a home game. All right, we got to go to West Virginia. Not ideal. At least it's not an early kickoff. You're playing them at 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern, right? Then you come back home, you face Houston. You should win those 2 games, in my opinion, right? And then you go to Baylor. This is the wild card one because, again, I have no idea what Baylor is this week, let alone in 3, right? So I think when you look at this, Texas Tech got a very favorable draw for what's going on right now, and it could allow Texas Tech to move some changing parts and get some guys reps that they need to get reps because simple and plain, Texas Tech struggled the first 2 weeks of the year at certain things. Obviously, Tarleton State was a tune-up game. You got to see a lot of backups, a lot of run for guys that probably aren't getting normal snaps. That being said, I do think Texas Tech gets on track with this easier slate to start the Big 12 schedule, right? And again, the Big 12 doesn't really have a ton of, okay, I'm dead sure on that one, outside of maybe Texas right now, right? Like, we know Texas is good, right? Kansas State, a team that I love, just lost to Missouri, right? 61-yard field goal, by the way. That is hella impressive by the Missouri kicker. But anyway, back on track, right? Like, outside of Texas, maybe Oklahoma, depending on how you view the Sooners. They really haven't played anybody. Tulsa was arguably their best team that they played in the non-con, and it's Tulsa, no offense, right? But outside of Texas, this is a crapshoot in the Big 12. Nobody has really stood out outside of the Longhorns. So Texas Tech has a chance to still compete in the Big 12, right? And I think people are down on this season already. 1-2 start, obviously not ideal, but Texas Tech still has a golden opportunity here to do something in the Big 12. Now, they got to correct a lot of things, and we'll talk about one of the biggest debates, if not the biggest debate right now in Red Raider Nation here in just a second, and it's QB1. But I want to hear from you guys just strictly the next 3 games. Again, at West Virginia, against Houston at home at the Jones, and then Baylor. How many games do you think Texas Tech wins in their next 3, right? Obviously, 3-0 is the goal. If they win 3, you're in a really good spot if you're Texas Tech. Realistically, for me, I'm probably going to say 2. I think they probably drop one of those games either at West Virginia or Baylor. I think they win that game against Houston at home. But you tell me, how many games do you think Texas Tech will win over the next 3? Because if they get out to a 3-0 start in the Big 12, you've got a really solid shot if you're Texas Tech to make some noise. All right, let's get to the QB1 talk here in terms of who should be the starting quarterback for the Red Raiders. And again, I want to put this out there. A lot of people have asked me to talk about this. This is why I'm bringing it up. Joey McGuire has said he has been adamant about it. That was one of the first things that he talked about after the Tarleton State game. Tyler Shough will be the starting quarterback for the Red Raiders at West Virginia, right? We've talked about this, right? Here are kind of my thoughts, and I want to hear from you guys here in just a second. I know I've asked y'all on the previous video, but you know what? Go ahead and let me know right now. Who do you want to be the Red Raiders QB1? Just an S for Shough and N for Morton. Let me know down in the comments below. But I kind of want to give my overview thoughts of this, okay? Because this is kind of where I stand, and I've talked about it over on the Twitter Spaces. You can follow me at RCMB323. It's right there on your screen right next to the name. I think this is a floor and ceiling play, right? Shough is the guy with the higher floor, at least perceived higher floor. Morton has the perceived higher ceiling. Which one do you like more, right? I think that's really what it comes down to. For me, I can't help but think about this. I think there's a potentially slippery slope here in really one big sense, and it's this. If you make the switch to Baron Morton from Tyler Shough, there's no going back, right? Like, there's no going back, in my opinion. You have to give the keys to the quote-unquote Ferrari to Baron Morton, and you got to sink or swim with it, right? Simple and plain, right? I think if you're Texas Tech and you make that switch, you have to go with Baron Morton, obviously, through the rest of the season, barring injury, right? I don't want to see any of that stuff that we saw last year with the 2 QBs, and it worked a little bit, don't get me wrong, but Tyler Shough, in my opinion, isn't a Donovan Smith in that regard, right? And I think if you do this, if you're Texas Tech, you just got to let it go. You got to let it go in terms of, hey, here you go, Baron. Here are the keys to the Ferrari. See where you can take us, right? Maybe he crashes it into a wall. Maybe he looks like a professional F1 driver in it. I don't know, right? But I do think that that's kind of the situation you're in. And I think Tyler Shough is talented. I think Baron Morton is talented. Again, it is a perceived floor and ceiling play for me when it comes down to who should be QB1. And I'll say this too. I would not be shocked with all the smoke that's around this. And I think there's something to be said that Joey McGuire knew right away what one of those questions would be, right? Specifically him after he said, hey, this was the plan all week, right? Like, he had to go out and say Tyler Shough would be QB1 for the West Virginia game. First and foremost, good for him for coming out and just getting that out in the open, right? It would not shock me, though, and this is not me knowing any information or anything. This is just my opinion, okay? If Tyler Shough struggles at West Virginia, it would not shock me at all if Baron Morton is the starting quarterback for the Houston game at home. If you're going to make the switch, it makes sense for the switch to happen at home so it's an easier transition, so you're not just throwing Baron Morton, who has some experience, not a ton, but some, into the fire in a hostile environment. It would be much easier for that to happen at home. So again, if Shough struggles at West Virginia, it would not shock me at all if Baron Morton is the starting quarterback for Texas Tech when that Houston game comes around. One more time, though, you guys let me know. I just need your opinion. This probably isn't the last time I'm going to ask you. Who do you want to be the Red Raiders QB1 moving forward? S for Shough, M for Morton. Let me know down in the comments below. And one more time, to the 71.3% or whatever I said earlier, I think it's 71.3, maybe 70.3, doesn't matter, of you that watch the videos and don't subscribe, what are you doing? We're giving you daily videos on Texas Tech football all year long, from game previews to really everything in between, whether we're talking about keys to the game, breaking news, recruiting news. We're going to go live every week with Behind Enemy Lines, talking to that opponent. Well, another YouTube channel regarding that opponent. This week we've got one on Thursday. Have a little bit more information later on in the week about that. But again, hit that subscribe button and join the fastest growing community of Texas Tech fans here on YouTube by simply subscribing to the Back to 12 podcast channel.